What would it take for you to completely change your beliefs? Could a single moment, a sudden vision, or a miraculous encounter shake your faith to its core? Today, I will share with you the story of Bruno Cornacchiola, a man who hated the Catholic Church so deeply that he wanted to destroy it. But everything changed on a fateful day in 1947. And trust me, by the end of this story, you'll understand why his transformation is nothing short of a miracle. Before we dive into the life-altering event that shook Bruno's world, let's take a moment to understand where this man came from. Bruno Cornacchiola was not born with hatred for the church. It was something that grew within him. Raised in a humble, struggling family in Italy, he faced hardships like many of us do. But over time, influenced by a close Protestant friend and disillusioned by life's hardships, Bruno developed a deep hatred for the Catholic Church. He didn't just question the church, he blamed it for all of the world's evils. In Bruno's eyes, the church was corrupt, a force that needed to be eradicated. His hatred reached a point where he would even throw religious icons into the trash, condemning everything the church stood for. He believed the church was a force of destruction, and he wanted it gone. Have you ever felt so strongly against something that you wished it would disappear entirely? I think many of us can relate to this at some point, whether it's an idea, a person, or even an institution. But Bruno's hatred ran so deep, it consumed his every thought. It's hard to imagine carrying that level of anger every day, right? As Bruno's hatred deepened, he became determined to take drastic action. His bitterness was so intense that he even claimed assassinating the Pope. This wasn't just anger anymore. It was a deep-seated rage that consumed his life. Now, let's fast forward to April 12, 1947. It was an ordinary day, or so Bruno thought. He and his 3 children were enjoying a family outing near the Tre Fontane Abbey, a beautiful site not far from Rome. The children were playing when suddenly they stopped and stared, mesmerized at something Bruno couldn't see. Their faces were filled with awe as they gazed toward a grotto near the abbey. Annoyed by his children's strange behavior, Bruno walked over to them, only to be struck by something beyond comprehension. There, before him, stood the Virgin Mary. She was glowing, radiant, and surrounded by a light so pure, Bruno could barely look at her. She moved her hands toward him, and as they approached his face, it felt as if a veil had been lifted from his eyes. Everything became clear, both in the physical world and in his soul. Can you imagine? One moment, you're filled with rage and hatred, and in the next, everything changes. It's as if your entire world flips upside down. I wonder, how would we react if we suddenly found ourselves face to face with something so divine, something that we didn't even believe in moments before? As Bruno stood there, overwhelmed by the vision, he heard her voice. Soft, yet commanding. She asked him to stop persecuting the church, and instead, to dedicate his life to spreading a message of peace, prayer, and unity. She warned him that the world was losing its faith, and she gave him glimpses of a future where disbelief would reign. The Virgin Mary's message to Bruno wasn't just for him. It was for all of us. She warned of a future where faith would dwindle, where people would turn away from spirituality and lose their moral compass. And when we look at the world today, can we deny that her words were prophetic? In a world that's increasingly secular, where belief in something greater than ourselves is often dismissed, it's hard not to see the relevance of her message. Think about it. How many times have we felt that society is losing its way? That people are more disconnected than ever, not just from religion, but from each other? Bruno's vision is a reminder that we need to hold on to something greater. Bruno's experience didn't just change his life. It gave him a new mission. The Virgin Mary asked him to share this message with others, to warn them of the dangers of a world without faith. It's a call that echoes through the decades, asking each of us to reflect on where we stand in our own spiritual journeys. Bruno didn't immediately find peace after the vision. In fact, his real struggle began afterward. When he returned home, he was met with skepticism. People doubted his story, accused him of fabricating it, and ridiculed him for claiming to have seen the Virgin Mary. Isn't it interesting how, even when we experience something truly profound, there will always be people who doubt us? Bruno faced this head-on, It makes me think about how often we question our own experiences just because others don't believe us. How many times have we second-guessed ourselves because of someone else's skepticism? Despite the doubts of those around him, Bruno stood firm in his belief. He sought out Pope Pius XII, confessing his previous intention to kill him. The Pope, with great mercy, forgave him, showing Bruno that forgiveness and redemption were always possible, no matter how far one had fallen. Bruno's story is powerful, but it's not unique. Throughout history, we've seen countless stories of transformation and redemption. Even in modern times, people have experienced profound changes in their lives through faith or moments of divine intervention. Think of someone like St. Augustine, who went from a life of debauchery to becoming one of Christianity's greatest thinkers. Or consider the story of someone like Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor who found meaning in the most unimaginable suffering. These stories remind us that no matter how lost we feel, there is always a path back. I believe that miracles aren't just things of the past. They happen today, too. They might not always be as dramatic as a vision of the Virgin Mary, but they exist in the quiet moments when we feel a shift in our hearts, when we find the strength to change something we never thought possible. Bruno's story is a powerful reminder that no one is beyond redemption. His journey from hatred to faith shows us that it's never too late to change. It doesn't matter how far we've fallen or how deeply we've strayed from the path, there's always a way back. What I take from Bruno's story is that hope is never lost. It doesn't matter if we're struggling with doubt, anger, or even hatred, there's always room for transformation. We just have to be open to it, to be willing to see the signs that life places in our path. Maybe they won't be as miraculous as Bruno's vision, but they'll be there if we look closely enough. Bruno's transformation wasn't just a moment of divine intervention, it was a message for all of us. It reminds us that no matter how far we've strayed, there is always a path back to faith, hope, and love. His story challenges us to reflect on our own lives and ask ourselves, what would it take for us to change? As you listen to Bruno's story, take a moment to think about your own journey. What are the things you're holding on to that might be keeping you from experiencing true peace? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that inspire, challenge, and move us all.